Okay, everybody, first, welcome to the, obviously, I did this because it's been a while since I did live classes. Bezrat Hashem, we're going to start again with live classes. I thank you, everybody, for your support. Everybody knows what I went through with my son. So, Bezrat Hashem, now I think it's a good time to continue. This class is Nishmat Yerachmiel Daniel Ben Gedale. So, we're going to take today a lot of questions. Because a lot of people are asking questions on we have a class every single day. Whoever's not on the WhatsApp group, please join it. All the announcements and everything. We also have an event coming up in December 16th in a rooftop in Brickell. Last event was sold out. That's going to be a singles class for Hashem. And again, we're going to post any events, etc., on the WhatsApp groups. Whoever is not in the WhatsApp groups, but we'll send the link so everybody can join afterwards. Okay, so I think we have a few questions. So today I really wanted, a lot of people are asking a lot of questions. I really want to dedicate a good hour or something just to answer as many questions as I can, so these classes could get the greatest benefit from it. Okay, so I thought that I saw a question there. What's the best tools for gratitude, right? Uri, are you there?
Yeah, so the first question is, what is the best way to practice gratitude and happiness? What's the most practical tools?
Very good. The first, gratitude is a result of perspective. So really, the best way to practice gratitude is basically to work on your perspective. Basically, the formula is this way. When we increase self-esteem, we all of a sudden increase, the ego goes down. As our ego goes down, our perspective widens. So the more you work on yourself, the more you work on your ego, the more you work on your expectations, the more you work on, practically things that are getting in the way of your gratitude, which is usually our perspective. That will allow you to see things completely different. Therefore, when you see things different, you'll be more grateful. What I practically do is I just do a daily, part of my morning session is definitely I vibrate on gratitude. I vibrate on all the things that happen. I thank God for my challenges. I thank God for my family. I thank God. So I start the day practically with a verbal gratitude. That's usually the first thing I do in the morning. But remember, if we're having a hard time with gratitude, it's because we're having a hard time with perspective. So as we increase our perspective, we widen our perspective, we are more grateful for everything. But to the extent that our perspective is very small, then what are we grateful for? Another phenomenal book that I recommend you is Garden of Gratitude by Rabbi Arush. It will also help you just widen basically the perspective. Because remember, we don't want to just say thank you, thank you, thank you, and you're saying like a robot. You don't really mean it, and that's the difference. We want to really believe in it, and we only want to say it from the heart, and that's sometimes the best way to really do it. So again, when perspective changes, gratitude flows. But the one that's the one thing that stops us from being grateful is obviously our ego or Yetzer Hara.
Okay, another question is that there's a viewer that wants to know where could they purchase your material and the books that you use to, put your lectures together.
Well, usually all the stuff that all the stuff that I use is usually in Breslev.org. That's the website, or Amazon, depending on the book that I use. It's usually Breslev.org. You could usually pretty much find all the lessons that I speak about. And God willing, my book will be coming out eventually. I don't have a date yet. We're still thinking about the type of topic, etc. But all of these things, basically the majority of my teachings are coming from Rabbi Kramer, which is the Breslev Research Institute. And we can, I think, Ariel, you can post the link, BRI.
No problem.
Institute.com, etc.
Okay, the next question is, we sometimes talk about not to always look for stability. How can one balance without working and putting self-work, studying for a career, etc., to find parnasa with stability? Thank you.
Right. I mean, Rabbi Nachman says in lesson 56 that stability and dot are very connected. I mean, dot means perspective, dot means wisdom. And he clearly says, to the extent that we have dot, we have stability. So what you really want to do is something you're passionate about. I always find that being passionate about something is very, very important. And then you have to learn as you go. I mean, I can't tell you there's a business that I've started that didn't start with, instability. And little by little through work, it became stable. But I don't think things come with stability. I think you have to make it into stability. I think if you're looking for too much stability, there's a price for that. So usually you're going to get unstable things, and then your job is to make it into stable. That's our job in this world, is to complete things. We want to look. We also don't want to have a job that doesn't test us, because if we're not a little anxious at work, where we're trying to grow, then maybe you're too comfortable in that job, and you're looking for too much stability, which when we have too much stability, then we really limit our growth. Okay. Next question. Can everybody hear me? Is the hearing good? Is the hearing good? Uriel, is the hearing good? Hello? Hearing is great. Wonderful. Okay,
I hear you.
question.
Yeah.
Great.
So what is Gedalia's schedule for Hitbodedut and Shachrit?
I wake up usually at 4 o'clock in the morning. I will start my, I'll do his Bodedut between usually 4 and 6. I'll do learning, I'll do preparing for the class, I'll do Tikkun Hatzot, and then I go to chakras about 6 o'clock. I go to chakras after I do my morning routine. I've done that for the past 12 years. So usually I do the pre-game stuff before, because I know if I don't do his Bodedut before Shachrit, there's a good chance I'm not going to do it. There's too much going on. So I usually try to wake up before Shachrit to definitely do his Bodedut. Nachman advises that's pretty much the same time, because at that time there's more mercy in the air, there's more clarity in the air, and there's a greater chance that you're able to get calmness and contemplation versus doing it at 9 o'clock when your phone's ringing and the whole world is noisy. Nachman advises a specific spot, a quiet spot, and for specifically the same spot. This way you can constantly connect to that energy in that location.
Okay, the next question is, how could one motivate their husband to pray, wake up early, and go to synagogue without coming off as his mom and being knowing?
Yeah, it's usually very tough. Spouses don't like to be told what to do. It's just I've never seen that work. Usually when people are nagging, it doesn't usually work. I mean, it usually has to come from somewhere else. I wouldn't advise the spouse to, the spouse could do what the spouse could do is they could pray for them, but they could try to get maybe a friend to do it or somebody else to do it, because once you do it too much, it's pretty much going to build resentment, and not only will they not pray, but they'll start resenting you and all that. Anything spiritual is very hard to directly for one spouse to another spouse to say. Our job is to pray for them behind the scenes, but not instruct them what to do. And try to get somebody else to do it in a friendly, loving way.
Okay. The next prayer is.
That's what I've seen work for the past 10 years. I've never seen unless they have that kind of relationship where it usually doesn't look good, because the person's feeling he's being attacked, etc.
Okay. Next question is, how does one get clarity when faced with a major decision?
What I usually do is I first surrender. I surrender to God's will. First of all, I accept the situation that I'm going through, whatever situation first you have to have acceptance. After you accept it, then you can surrender, and then you can pray for guidance. And then you have to pretty much, after you do those steps, you surrender, you pray for guidance, then you have to surrender the outcome. Because sometimes what you want is not what your creator wants, and that is part of the process that can actually get you to what you really, really want, etc. So we have to be very careful not to be tied to specific things. So I would also say, I've had major decisions in my life. Some were good, some were learning experiences. So we don't want to sit there and have indecision. Better to have a decision and recognize either you're going to win or you're going to learn in the process. That's usually the best decision, to just make a decision and learn on the process. There's a great book called How Fast, Fail Fast, Fail Often. It basically talks about that successful people spend more time getting going and making decisions than thinking about making decisions. So I would recommend you to have bitachon, trust, and just make a decision. Pray for it, make a decision, but surrender the outcome, because what we think maybe it could be something bad, it can actually be something really, really good. This is why we don't want to sabotage, having too much control by telling God, I want this to happen. Meanwhile, if that happened, it would be good for you. So there's a much greater plan your Creator has. And you have to surrender to the outcome. Make a decision, but surrender the outcome.
Okay, the next question is basically thanking you. Thank you so much for doing these classes and sharing your wisdom with us. The amount of wisdom I picked up is amazing. My question is, you talk about many things we start doing, whether it's tikkun haklali, chatzot, hitbodedut. When someone starts, it can feel overwhelming to fit all that in your schedule. What would be the first action that one can take to build up the momentum?
Well, depending on the the issue with that specific person is. So that's a really pretty much loaded question. If the problem is there's a major problem with sexual immorality, that's pretty much causing everything else to crash. So we want to really get to the core of the first thing that needs to be worked on. And that's usually the first, you have to work on one thing at a time. Nachman does not tell you to do 1,000 things. But when I specifically speak to guys about sexual immorality, if you don't work on that, you're not going to get anything else. But if you get that, you'll get everything else. It really depends on the situation of the person, what he's dealing with. The person's praying for his spouse. He should, his job is to, better work on his bodedut, talk to God about the situation. Either way, you have to talk to God, because there's nowhere else to run in this world but to run to God. And that's the only way where you're going to get the results. Now, doing his bodedut along with tikkun haklali shouldn't be so overbearing. I understand, but the overbearing is only because we're not seeing things clear. This is where our job is really to get going, and then the clarity comes as we go. You're going to see it's a lot easier as we go. I've been saying tikkun haklali for the past 25 years. No, 20 years. I've been saying it every single day. In the beginning, it was very heavy, but like everything else, it's better to get going, and you'll see the things will lighten up than saying it's too much for me, because then you'll never really get going. You have to also realize you can handle these things. When I tell you guys to do things, you can handle them. The fatigue is only in our mind. We have to fight the fatigue. I think that was today's class. We have to get to the position to fight the fatigue. You can't always just say, it's too much, I don't have a head. No, you have to get through it. These classes are not for everybody. And I'm telling you right now, they're not for everybody. But whoever does these classes and follows the instructions, I'm telling you right now, I'm getting guaranteed results across the board. It's not for everybody. You have to be really, really committed. And you have to be able to fight those dark days and fight the moods and we speak a lot about this. We can't just say it's too much for me. No, you have to get going. So practically you could do maybe tikkun haklali once a week. It's about to do 10 minutes, start small. But it's better to do something than to do nothing.
And one of the ways that you could start to learn how to do tikkun haklali, that's how I advise a lot of people, is just by listening to the YouTube recordings, and you could get familiarized with the words. That's one way that people could get familiarized by reading it, just by hearing it.
For real, there's a simple concept in Judaism and in life. According to the struggle is the reward. We're not here to hand out free passes. We have to get through it. We just have to fight. We have to recognize how much we have to gain. We have to recognize the obstacles part of the solution. We have to find a way to get through it. And I'm telling you right now, when you recognize and you make a decision that there's no other option but to get through it, you'll see heaven will help you. When you say, I don't have the head for it, I can't do it, then heaven's not going to help you. Heaven only helps those who want to help themselves. There's a pasuk that says, we strengthen, we quicken. The quicken gets strengthened. Bottom line, you have to create that arousal, you have to create that intention, then your Creator will do the rest. But we don't always want to fall back on this mindset of, I can't. It's not going to get you anywhere. not going to get you anywhere in life.
True. Okay. The next question is, I almost feel like no matter what I do in regards to Torah learning, I just never seem to get enough, and I never feel satisfied because there's so much in Torah. What's the best way to approach this lack?
Right. So we all, first of all, we have to recognize in life that we live in a world of lack. There's no completeness. We don't have we're nothing complete in this world. And there's a principle that the more you know, the more you recognize you know nothing. So it keeps you humble to recognize that you always want to learn more, but you'll always recognize the more you know, you'll recognize you know nothing. So there's really no satisfaction in that area because you're not supposed to be satisfied. It's not supposed to be upset about it. You're just supposed to recognize how great God is, how great the Torah is, and how much you have, how much you have to look forward to. But once you come to any level of knowledge, you recognize you know nothing. A practical level would be not just to learn it, but to also pray. Pray to be able to receive it. Pray to be able to, that it should be interpreted into, this is, Rabbi Nachman takes the example of Yaakov became Yisrael. Yaakov represents the heel, Yisrael represents the head. So to basically taking our knowledge and taking it from potential into actual. So I would recommend that person to maybe start praying a little bit more to taste the sweetness of it, where he feels satisfied by creating something new versus, whatever I learn, I'm never going to learn a lot. That's not what it's supposed to empower you, not drain you.
Okay, the next question. Are ego and low self-esteem linked? And if yes, absolutely, how do we unlink them?
It's correct. It's guaranteed. It's directly linked. When you have low self-esteem, the first thing you do is you put up an ego. Because remember, when we have low self-esteem, we don't want to get hurt again. So what we'll do is we'll usually blame somebody for our problems. We'll say, this person caused me to do that. That's why I'm not successful. This one. But when when your self-esteem increases, you're willing to do anything in the world to fix it. You will not blame anybody. You will say, I'm the problem, I'm the solution. You will put more effort and you will build your self-esteem. But what an ego does is it's the Yetzer Hara, and it blocks your perspective, and it doesn't allow you to see the big picture. So you're always focused on yourself and you're self-centered. So the ego, when a person's very egocentric, he's very self-centered. It's all about him. He's not going to take responsibility. When you're in your soul state, then you will start taking responsibility. So the way to do it is obviously building yourself up, because the more you build yourself up, the more you will do anything. You'll be open-minded to try anything. But let's talk about somebody who's not working on themselves. They'd rather make excuses than make adjustments by saying, oh, it doesn't work, prayer doesn't work, that doesn't work, Judaism doesn't work, this doesn't work, because they're such low self-esteem, they don't want to take a risk of getting hurt again, so they'd rather just blame somebody to protect themselves, but it imprisons themselves.
Okay,
so
the next.
A good chance that you're building your self-esteem is when you start becoming open-minded. That's pretty much the more open-minded you are, the less self-centered you are. The more closed-minded you are, the more self-centered you are. So this is pretty much an open mind that you'll be able to see things through a different perspective. With a closed mind, you always see your narrow way of looking at something.
Okay, the next question is, when starting a new job, there are a lot of obstacles and the beginning is very difficult with a lot of anxiety. What's the best way to handle this anxiety and to be able to overcome the obstacles?
Right. Anxiety sometimes in social anxieties, you think the whole world revolves around you. People don't pay so much attention to us. We think they do. It's called the spotlight effect. We always think that, people are talking about us or how if I fail, etc. This happens a lot when people start public speaking. They have a lot of fear of public speaking because they're always worried about what are people going to say about them. The best thing to do when you're handling a situation of a new job, you should say, I can handle this, because anxiety is often your ability to handle that challenge. So if you don't think you have the ability to handle a new job, of course you're going to go into a threat mode, into a panic mode. But if you believe that you can handle it, it's a belief, then that new job will be a challenge for you. Understand? We want to convert threats into challenges. I'm excited about the new job instead of being anxious about the new job. I mean, it's the same energy, but it now channels into excitement versus channeling into self-centeredness and anxiety, etc. Or fear of, not succeeding, or fear of, not being good enough, or fear of getting fired, etc.
So the next question.
Usually not that particular person, they're holding in too much fear. So they'll be anxious about a new job, they'll be anxious about a new relationship, they'll be anxious about a new home, they'll be anxious about pretty much anything because that's what they're holding inside. The outside is just triggering them what they're holding. So you really have to fix the internal problems, which is start trusting instead of fearing in this situation.
Okay, the next question is, I had a spiritual awakening full of hope towards my father getting better and healed. I lost it all after he passed away. I can no longer pray, meditate, and exercise as I used to while I was connected. What's the best way to get back on the road?
Listen, you know what I went through, obviously. There's a time to grieve. You have to grieve, you have to feel, and you have to heal. So there's a time to grieve. You have to grieve. I don't know how long this was, but usually it's very important that we give it the right meaning. The meaning that I gave particularly to my son is God gave me a beautiful child for 15 years. He deposited him in my hands, and thank God it had beautiful. I was gifted 15 years instead of losing the child, which is, again, it's a Superman perspective. But at the end of the day, we have to believe in reincarnations. We have to believe in missions. We have to believe in a bigger picture. Do I get triggered? Absolutely. Is it difficult? Absolutely. But I can always look at it and always say, you know what? It was gifted to me. It was gifted to me. It was a gift from my creator. He did his mission. He's in a better place versus I lost something. And that's something that really, really helps me, take that push, take those triggers and really recycle them, etc. And what we could do for him practically is you could do a lot of things for him down here. You can give charity in his name. You can give classes in his name. You can do a lot of good you can elevate him below. So when he's in heaven, he gets more benefit by you taking action and doing things for him than sitting and being, God forbid, brokenhearted or depressed. What can you do for him? Nothing. We can only do as much as we can for our loved ones that passed away by doing things for him. So your creator your father would want you to do more for him than to sit and be depressed. And that's not what he would want. And I think that's exactly what you did today. So you're on the right track. Yeah, it still hurts. It's painful, but you need a lot of strength. You need a lot of prayers. You need a lot of strength. It's not an easy thing to go through. For my challenge was tremendous challenge. But again, this is what I learn all day. Reb Nachman, once somebody came to Reb Nachman, somebody was dying of God forbid, of a sickness, and he's saying, "What are you worried about? That world is much better than this one." He told him like that, and Reb Nachman said, "Death is." He considered death from moving to the living room to the dining room. It's just our illusion of this that makes us, God forbid, fall into a very dark place.
Okay. The next question is, I've been doing Hitbodedut for over 2 years, Baruch Hashem. Is it recommended to say it on Shabbat and Yom Tov? And if yes, do we just focus on praying and gratitude, on praise and gratitude, and not request for things? Because you can't ask for things on Shabbat and Chagim.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of things to ask for in life. You want Hashem to help you have perspective. You want Hashem to help you, connect to the holiday. Yeah, you want to focus more on spiritual things on Shabbat versus financial or physical things. Correct. But if you're doing his Bodhisattva for 2 years, it's a tremendous growth you're having. You'll have tremendous miracles from that. So how does one do Hitbodedut, and how long it should take ideally? Right. Again, his Bodhisattva we speak about many times. Bodhisattva means peaceful dead, to talk to your creator in private. The whole purpose, if we believe it or not, is to get close to our creator, to have emunah, etc. So when we talk to our creator, we're recognizing that we have faith in him. You don't have a communication with your creator, it recognizes that you don't have faith. Faith and prayer pretty much are synonymous. If you have faith, you pray. So his bodhidut is ultimately an expression of your faith, believing that what you say can actually have an influence in heaven. That's the first thing. His bodhidut also allows you to do constant tshuva. It allows you to constantly come closer to your creator and tell him how, the mistakes you make, the errors you make, your ability to want help in certain areas. So that also helps you deal with, God forbid, the person getting, let's say a person's arrogant and he has a yetzer hara for arrogance or his yetzer hara for anger. But if the guy goes every single day, in fact, tells the creator, Hashem, please, you gave me this midah of anger. I can't stop getting angry. I need your help. That person will not be punished as much when he gets angry because he's asking for help. So what you're really doing when you're doing this bodhidut is you're really, really mitigating a lot of judgment because you're taking responsibility and recognizing there's faults, there's situations here that need to be worked on, versus people just denying their issues and just pretty much saying I don't have this problem. Your creator wants you to get closer to him, and he wants you to get closer to him through these issues. To the extent that you get closer to him, he cancels punishment. This is why our sages say that punishment was only created in an absence of teshuvah. So his bodhidut allows you also to contemplate, to settle your mind, to let things go, to to connect to your creator, to show your creator, to show your creator that there's nowhere else to run in this world. That's another thing. You're basically making a proclamation. Hashem, I know you are the only solution that I have. And I'm going to talk to you. And if I'm holding things in, there's worries that I have in my heart or I have a burden in me, I'm going to come here and just go to do, and I'm going to do exactly what you tell me. And I'm going to cast it upon you. And I'm going to give up control. I'm going to surrender personal control for personal peace, because now you're going to handle these things for me. I came here to do that. So basically, you're unwinding all your pain to him. You're asking him for help. You're doing teshuvah. You're being grateful, and you're basically checking in. You're checking in, and you're displaying emunah. So there's so many benefits to it. I mean, it's a spiritual power workout, because the benefits you get from it is, you pretty much are not going to get reminded. If I have a problem with humility, I don't need somebody else to consult me to tell me, humble yourself. If I tell Hashem, listen, I need to humble myself, I need to work on myself, he's not going to send messengers to show me the lessons that I know I already need to work on. We have many classes on his bodhidut, particularly. You can look them up on YouTube, etc. But this is just a little synopsis, pretty much what his bodhidut is.
Okay, the next question is, with all the things that are happening in the world today, do you still think it's important to reach goals like buying a home or building a business?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is all media. This is all freer tactics. You don't have to live in that world, practically. I mean, I went in the middle of COVID and I bought a hotel. It was the greatest purchase I ever made. We don't have to get caught up in this nonsense of fear and worry and scare. This is not the way we live. We're above nature. You can live above nature. And this is something you need to remind yourself. We're not. If you don't have bitachon, if you don't trust in God, yes, then you're going to fall to the chaos of this world. But you can live above it by having a different frequency, by having bitachon and emunah in Hashem, and you won't get caught up. But you recognize it's all of this stuff is political control. It's all chametz. It's all there to confuse you and make you depressed. There's no reality to it.
Okay, so the next question is, when do we know what we're doing is right and if it's right for us?
It's a pretty much loaded question. When do you know it's right? What you should do, again, anything you want to do, what I recommend you is consult with your creator. That's it. As long as you check in and you ask for help, whether you do it, whether you're successful or not successful, it could be part of the process. We don't want to second question ourselves. We want to have a very simple relationship with your creator. Your creator did not make you into a where you have to solve puzzles every single time. He just wants you to have simple faith. You have an issue, come to him, speak to him, talk to him. Focus on your simplicity. Don't always second guess. Many times, again, I make mistakes, but I'm not sitting there in anxiety over why I did the right man. No, I learned. I made a mistake, I did. If I didn't make a mistake, if I made a mistake, I learned from it. That's it. I'm not going to sit there and hold the past is not going to hold me back. Also, you shouldn't also be worried about the past holding you back. You have to be able to be resilient and get over these challenges, whether you make the right decision or you don't make the right decision. And this is a person who went through a divorce, who had business failures, and the only thing that helps you is moving. You gotta keep on moving. That is really the key to success.
Is what? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Is one allowed to read Tikkun HaKlali at night?
Some opinions say yes, some opinions say no. But if you missed it, do it that day. But it's better to do it in the morning. But I've seen rabbis do it at night. I've seen it.
Okay, so
do it at night.
So you mentioned getting up early in the morning. So what's an ideal time to go to sleep?
I go to sleep before 10. Because remember, guys, the quality of your sleep before 10 is much better. You know, even the science behind it. Any sleep before 12 is definitely better, more beneficial. And also, you have to recognize the night itself is judgment. The night is this is the time where, you can start watching Netflix for 3-4 hours. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It just creates a bad wake up calls in the morning. So what I try to do is I really recognize I'd rather go to sleep earlier, which is 10 o'clock, and I'll get up at that hour and I'll be plenty, completely fresh. Yes, sometimes I go out to dinner, sometimes I go out to weddings, whatever I have to do. Those nights I don't. But the majority of the time, you want to go to sleep earlier because you're going to get up early. You're gonna first of all, you're gonna not waste time at night, and you're gonna wake up in the day already with a tremendous head start, and that will do tremendous benefits for you. But again, 10 o'clock latest, I go to sleep. There's no point. 11 o'clock, 12. What are we doing that we need to do at this hour? There's no point. Tom Brady, very successful people do not go to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning. There's absolutely not. You have to watch your time.
So what should one do when they feel that the prayers aren't working?
The prayers always work. It's just the packaging sometimes we don't like. We said that today. What you should recognize is you should let go of any expectation. You understand? Usually prayers sometimes become very heavy if we have an expectation or we're watching the scoreboard. What you want to do also is you want to figure out how to pray. You also don't want to say, God, please change your mind, change this. No, you want to say, change yourself. What areas in your life can you change in yourself? Pray to learn something new. Pray for spiritual things. Usually when you pray for spiritual things, you end up getting them all the time. So it could be that person's only praying for physical things, not praying for spiritual things. And they usually are praying, just give it to me, give it to me. It's not a dog. You really want to pray for spiritual things. Spiritual things become physical things. If you want to make more money, Hashem, give me more bitachon. More bitachon is going to lead you to making more money. More trust will lead you to making more money. Hashem, give me yeshuva dat. If you have dat, you're going to make more money. You're going to be more calmer. You're going to have more clarity. You understand? You want to pray for spiritual things, because spiritual things become manifested in physical things.
Okay. So this is a question from a viewer who recently lost her father. How do I ditch the sorrow and depression fully after the loss of my father? It's been 18 months and some days it still pulls me under. Thank you.
Right. Again, we have to attach. It's very important that Judaism talks about Gilgulim, missions, and there's more than just the body is gone, but the soul is eternal. You have to recognize there's a lot more going on than just the person dying. This is where Manis Friedman has great books on that. Educate yourself a little bit on the after body experience, what happens. And you recognize that you will do more, like we answered the other question. You do more for them when you're happy, they're happier in heaven because they can't do anything. And if we're sorrowing and sadness and depression, they're not getting any benefit. You're only giving them benefit if you do acts for them, such as saying brachos in their name, such as giving charity in their name, sponsoring classes, learning, doing good deeds in their name. This has tremendously more power in heaven for what they're doing than sitting home being depressed over why God did that to us. That's not something that you're going to get any consolation. So you have to recognize that God has a much bigger picture. And I'm telling you, believe me, this is something I went through. The only reason I was able to go through it and be able to come through it how I did is because I attached the right meaning. I recognize this world is temporary. We're not here forever. And we should also know that there's a better place, but what we could practically do is do as much things below to help the souls above, and that's not going to happen with sadness and depression. It's going to happen with simcha and mitzvot.
Okay, so the next question is from our post earlier today, which we posted. It says, Rabbi Natan advises us that if we can't come to joy at the present moment, we should borrow it from the future. Faith until you make it. And the question is, how do we borrow from the future?
By believing in God's mercy that He's going to save you and you're going to have good times ahead. That's what faith is. Believing, thinking greater than you feel. Believing that He's going to give you Yeshua. The belief itself allows you to see it. We say this all the time. Believe it and you will see it. But if you're stuck on, I need to see it to believe it, this is why we can't do that. So if we believe that God has saved us many times, why will He not save you again? Why will He not save you again? So we can constantly ask Hashem for miracles. We can ask, we believe in His kindness, that He was going to provide for us, because He's a loving God. He created the world in order to give. Why wouldn't He give you? So when you have that simple approach, then you can start celebrating in advance. For real? Good?
Yeah, the next question is, could you please speak about the 40-day challenge and elaborate on it?
Is this a guy or a girl?
It says anonymous. I don't know. So take both routes.
Okay. Basically, the number one cause of much spiritual depression is spilling seed, masturbation, pornography, immoral sexuality. This is what causes pretty much the biggest darkness. Why? Because the same potential you have to make children, if a child is not made, or if it's not used in the appropriate way, then unfortunately it becomes a shed or a demon or a negative force. These negative forces attack a person, make a person tremendously depressed. They make them anxious. You lose focus. You start, having a negative ruach. It's a klipa. So what we're trying to do, specifically with men, is the reason why they're so distant from Judaism and they feel the way they are. It's not because of their soul. It's because there's a lot of klipot, which means shells or obstacles or these negative klipot that are on them. So Reb Nachman recognized this was a major issue, that people were going to have this. He even said back then that 3/4 of the world has this issue. And this issue has the ability to depress you and completely take you out of the game. So when he advises to do the 40-day challenge, which 40-day challenge is to stop doing this and to say Tikkun HaKlali for 40 days straight. And little by little, we can start taking these layers and start creating momentum. If you just look at the science behind this problem also, people are doing this or watching pornography. Your brain is connected to pornography, 200% dopamine. You can't maintain that level of dopamine. So what happens is you need more and more to maintain it. And what happens is your mind just gets completely depressed. It's pretty much taking a child on a Space Mountain ride and then telling him to go on the teacups and telling him, can't you see the beauty in the teacups? Our brains can't handle that amount of stimulation. So this is an area that Rabbi Nachman says that if we're able to work on this area, everything else will open up to us, such as relationships, such as money, such as happiness, such as spirituality. This is one of the biggest areas that causes darkness. I myself had this issue when I was 22 years old. I picked up a tikkun klali. I started doing it, and it absolutely changed my life. So there's a reason why I went through that. But I know what it is to go through that darkness, and you feel like you lost yourself. You feel complete despair, complete anxiety. Your mazal, nothing's working. It's a very dark cloud. So what I specifically speak about is starting there before we deal with any of the other issues, because this is the area that has the most predominant area for spiritual damage, physical damage, and emotional damage is this area. So this is why for guys, you got to do this. It's non-negotiable. You have to stop watching porn. You have to stop doing all this. It's non-negotiable, because you're never going to get anywhere in life if this is not fixed. And I'm the only one talking about it like this. And I'm a very modern guy, so I'm telling you, it's not something you can't do. You could do it, and it'll change your whole life. But this is why I talk so much about it, because you see the singles crisis. You see what's going on in the world. It's a mess. But the only way to fix it is to get really the guys to get back in the game.
Okay. So the next question is, this person has struggled with Shmirat Habrit for a long time and recently got on a streak. How long should he, continue the streak before he starts dating?
I mean, you could start dating as long as you have you have to recognize if you're married, you're dating somebody potentially to marry. If you're dating somebody to sleep with them, that's going to screw up your soulmate. And girls see that. Girls can see that negative energy when the guys, they can see that. The whole thing is, you don't understand that. When you're on a date with somebody, they feel your energy. So to the extent that you cleanse yourself in this area, you will have a different energy on a date. And people will like you more, and they'll see more of you instead of seeing the darkness in your face. So you could start dating when you feel you're ready to have a real relationship without, relationship for love, not lust. Basically, when you're out of lust mode.
Okay.
And remember, and we have to also recognize that the reason why this habit is the number one, the problem is because of lack of faith, or we had areas in our lives, God forbid, there's areas that people were abused, or people went through tremendous challenges and they lost themselves. And because of the sadness, it led them to escape with this problem. And this problem now becomes a bigger problem than the original problem. So you can see how much this definitely affects us.
Okay, so what's the first thing a person should focus on when they're starting to do Hitbodedut? What's the best way to fire off his Hitbodedut when you're starting it?
Right. The first thing you could do is, I want to have a relationship with you. Creator of the world, I want to have a relationship with you. We've spoken about his Bodedut. People keep on telling me how good it is. People tell me how I should talk to you. I want to talk to you, but I have nothing to say. Even though I have this issue, even though I have that issue, Hashem, but I have nothing to say. I'm sitting here mute with nothing to say, talking like a wall. Open up my heart. Basically, you're telling him how you feel exactly at the moment. This is what's going on in your life. His Bodedut is about being real. God, I hate you. I hate what you're doing to me, but I'm still coming to you. You understand? You want to unload your heart and talk to him and recognize that you're in pain or whatever you're going through. Every single Hisbodedut for me is a different part of my life. One day it's about my children. One day it's dealing with my, helping me heal from my son's death. Every day I have a different emotion that I have to deal with. Other times I've come tremendously inspired, and I just said, forget about me. Let me pray for the whole world today. Other times there's an issue in business. So there's always something that's going to get your attention in heaven, that you want to come closer to your creator in that issue. It always changes. Ramasa says the situation always changes. It's not an Amazon Echo or robot. You're always going to have a different situation that life is going to challenge you with, that you're going to ask your creator for help. So there's no one-shot thing. This is why whatever's on your heart, pour it out. Pour it out. And the reason why it's so difficult is because what you get out of it It's unreal. I mean, I don't have to tell you anything. You guys know how many classes I've produced. And that is not from my own to deal. That's because constant talking to Hashem, what should I talk about? Giving me ideas. I mean, you got 1,200 classes every single day doing a class. Coming up with a new class every single day almost, while managing 4 kids and businesses and etc. It's almost an impossible thing. But if you have that area of this dude, God just downloads you information. And sometimes I don't feel like talking. I'm just too stressed out. Then I have to start putting on music. And just getting in the mood, and then I'll start. But it's a different thing every day. Every day it's a different. It's not. There's no. Every day is a different challenge.
Okay. The next question is: what is the best way to blend 2 divorced families?
To blend 2 divorced families.
2 divorced families.
You need a lot of mercy. You need to practice. I would say both of them should read the book Tomer Devorah, and then together, and then go into the situation. Read, because you have to talk about mercy, and you're dealing with other people's children. It's all kinds of things can happen. It's very difficult. I'm going to be honest with you. I know what I'm dealing with. It's not an easy thing to go through. And in order to do that, you really have to be selfless and really work on compassion and empathy for the other person, what they're going through, and be less self-centered. But easily said than done. So I recommend Tomer Devorah. Tomer Devorah is a phenomenal book on just how viewing other people, giving them mercy. And when you give other people mercy, you get mercy in results.
Okay. What could you say about men going to the mikveh? It should be a daily thing, weekly thing. What's Reb Nachman's advice in regards to the mikveh for men?
Right. I practically go every day. Mikveh gives you dot, it gives you cleansing, it reduces judgments. It's a phenomenal thing to do. It basically makes you focus. Obviously, it depends on how far the person lives also. But it's strong. Reb Nachman says he would not make a decision before going to the mikveh. I'll tell you right now, if I don't go to the mikveh and I do a class, it's a different class. When I go to the mikveh, I have more clarity. Mikveh gives you clarity. It gives you clarity and gives you dot. And it takes away the judgment. Very beneficial.
Okay. The next question is, what are your thoughts on the mind-body connection from the healing aspects, especially? If you have stuck emotions, could they be reason for pain? Could they be the reason for pain?
Absolutely. Whatever you hold in your mind manifests in your body. And your mind is in a higher calibration than your body. So you have placebo effect, all that. I'm a very big believer in that. Bruce Lipton has the science behind this. Joe Dispenza has the science behind it. Reb Nachman talks about it in Lesson 7, that it's all spiritual, that you can heal through emunah. Absolutely. I'm very into that. You can heal through faith. Faith heals. Reb Nachman says the main cause of healing is simcha, and the main cause of sickness is sadness. So clearly it's an emotional thing. And every emotion also has a different organ tied to it, such as anger is tied to the liver, the lungs are tied to grief, kidneys are tied to fear, the kidneys are tied to fear, the spleen is tied to overthinking and sadness. So even every single organ has a specific emotion that is the dominant emotion in that organ. The heart is lungs. Absolutely, it's very, very connected.
So going back to the 40-day challenge, there's a follow-up question. So what would the path be for women struggling with, watching whatever they're not supposed to be watching?
Right. It would be the same thing. It could be the same thing because, again, you still have the dopamine thing. You still have the dopamine, the high levels of dopamine. You need a dopamine detox. And that's just the science behind it. But when you're watching those things, it's very hard for you to connect spiritually because you're going to feel shame. And that's the problem. Because when you're watching that stuff, now you want to go pray, you're going to feel too much shame. You're like, I can't open this book. Look what's in my head. So it blocks the prayers. So I would also recommend that person to do the 40-day challenge. And again, let me recall something very quick. I'm not judging anybody. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to tell you to. I'm just here to help you. That's the difference. But this is a non-judgmental situation. I don't tell people how to dress. I don't judge them because I know where I was at. So there's no judgment behind it. This is why when people ask me things, they ask me real things because what do we need to hide? We need to fix. We need to fix them. We need to express exactly what's going on in our lives. Otherwise, we can't fix things that are in the closet. So for that person, definitely recommend the Tikkun HaKlali, because Tikkun HaKlali is also a spiritual antidepressant, according to Rebbe.
So
obviously recognizing the reason why we're doing that, why are we seeking this kind of dopamine? It's because we're sad. There's a sadness area in our lives that this is trying to fix. The pornography becomes the solution to the problem, which is escape to fantasy, dopamine, which ends up becoming worse than now we have two issues.
So basically the same way that men could attract these negative husks, the woman could attract these negative.
Sure. Just the science behind it. You have high levels of dopamine. When you're watching porn, the levels of dopamine go. The science behind it is they go up 200%. So how could you maintain 200% dopamine? You can't do it. So this is why there's all kinds of varieties called the Coolidge effect. But at the end of the day, when you're trying to do something small, you're used to, it's like a drug. You're depending on too much dopamine, which you can't maintain. If I want to get dopamine, I have to go work out, hit a goal. I have to earn that dopamine. But if I'm watching TV for 10 minutes, and next thing you know, my brain goes on 200%, that's not earned. I can't maintain that. I can't maintain that dopamine. Same thing as cocaine, same thing as drugs. Same problem. Same reward center in your brain called the nucleus accumbens that lights up. So just forget the spiritual. You also have the science behind it, telling you the exact same thing.
So Gedale, basically the same way that these husks bring confusion and brain fog, they could mislead a person also, right? In their path in life?
Well, there's three klipot particularly that these things cause. One is called the flashing fire. Flashing fire means an impulsive, emotional, you can't control your emotions. You're always angry. You're always irritable. It's like a flashing fire of impulsiveness. That's one of them. The next one is called the ruach sa'ara. Ruach sa'ara is a very dark storm wind, which is just having a constant depression, a constant sadness, never being able to see anything good in life. It's a ruach of sa'ara, a ruach of depression, a ruach of sadness. And the third one is a great cloud. Great cloud is referred to today, brain fog. Brain fog, not having any clarity or OCD. There's no clarity, more brain fog, I would say.
Okay. The next question is, if we leave it all to God, how is it meant to be done? Then maybe we should just sit home and do nothing.
That's not what God's telling you. I will bless you in everything that you do. You have to do. Nobody's saying leave it all to God. It's getting to a point where you've tried everything, and that's when you surrender. God blesses everything that you do, not by sitting home. So it's definitely nobody's ever said that in an answer. I will bless you. You have to make a shtabut. Person has to make a shtabut, has to make an effort, and he gets blessed based on how his shtabut. It doesn't mean you're always going to be successful in your efforts. God blesses the reward. God blesses the outcome, but you still have to make a shtabut. The person could take 10 hours on one business deal, or he could spend 5 minutes on a phone call. They can make more money on a phone call. They can make 10 hours on a business deal. We have to make our shtabut, but our Creator blesses our shtabut.
Okay, so how would you define the difference between a challenge and a punishment? Because a lot of people can differentiate between the two. So what's the difference between something that's a challenge and something that's a punishment?
It's never I would like to use the word, instead of punishment, cleansing. Cleansing is a better term than a punishment. Because ultimately it's cleaning you. When you suffer, you're getting cleansed. So you're not really, it's not a punishment, it's a cleansing. It's a cleansing. It's a form of getting your attention. If your creator's knocking on the door, you don't answer. Then he's got to knock on the door louder and louder. Lahabdo. Then you don't answer. And then all of a sudden the door gets knocked over. And you say, why are you punishing me? Well, I tried to get your attention a few times. So your higher self always does whatever it takes to get your attention. But if you're not listening, the call gets louder and louder. So yeah, punishment, I would say, if the person's not listening, he just gets a bigger cleansing. But I don't like the word punishment. I like the word cleansing better.
Okay, so what advice would you give to someone who wants to find their soulmate? And this is coming from a woman viewer. She's female. She's asking this question.
All right, we're going to have a class on December 16th, God willing, in Brickell. But there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things. It's a big question. This is why there's a few classes that I've done already. Just some things that would say, what is your intention in the marriage? Are you coming to give? Are you coming to take? Another thing is loving yourself, becoming the one instead of looking for the one. Usually in life, we do much better when we become the one and we vibrate love. People want to be around us. It's much easier to find people when you're yourself, know who you are, versus always looking for people. Understand? We want to attract, not search so much. But again, we could be here for hours in that question. That's why we'd rather address it on December 16th. We could give her other classes also to listen to.
Okay, the next question is, Gedale, I'm praying 3 times a day. I'm Shomer Brit, and I'm trying to become a better person, yet still I'm anxious. How do I control my anxiety?
You could be it means you're still trying to control the outcome of things. So you have to get it. Praying, and the more I connect in the moment. You understand, what is anxiety really? Anxiety is really not being in the moment. When I'm doing something and I'm focusing exactly what I'm doing, time does not bother me. Time only bothers me when I think I should be somewhere else than I am right now. Let's say right now there's a heat game that's on, which there is, but I couldn't care less. I would be like, okay, how many more questions? I'm anxious. Okay, where are we? Are we done? We done? Because my head's on the heat game. My head's not in the class. But when we're not in the class, when we're not where we are, we always think we need to be somewhere else. So that's always that anxiety of never being I'm not in the right place right now. I feel like I'm not. I could be doing more, could be doing less, but at the end of the day, we keep on going from one moment to another moment. So it's very, very important when you pray, Hashem, connect. I want to connect to you. Forget prayer. I just want to connect to you. And when you recognize, when you start connecting, you won't even call it prayer. You'll be like, wow, what an experience I had. And that will take away your anxiety thoughts. Anxiety is always usually rooted in always being in the next moment, running to nowhere. So you have to slow down and recognize that time does not exist. Time only exists in an absence of consciousness. So I recommend that person to be more in the moment, and you'll see that anxiety you'll be completely, it'll help you. If that's the end, if that person, there could be other issues such as fear, there could be other issues that the person's going on in life. But when I've seen practically in areas that I've got anxiety is when I'm not in the moment, when I'm focusing on something else while I'm doing something else, and that's the reason why I have anxiety, because I'm not in the moment. It's teaching me that I have to be more focused in the moment and not somewhere else.
Okay. The next question is from a viewer. Thank you for your classes and wisdom that you share with us. How can I do teshuvah and ask for forgiveness for the people that I bullied in my childhood when it is hard to remember who I hurt? How can I do teshuvah for the women that I've dated in previous relationships?
Right. I think that when your creator sees your intention is to do better and you're working on yourself and you can't reach the people, that itself is a forgiveness. Embarrassment forgives you. One of the greatest forms of forgiveness is being embarrassed for one's sins. Our sages say a person who's embarrassed over what he did, he is forgiven. So the fact that you're embarrassed and you did some wrong things and you need to work on yourself. And that itself is a forgiveness. Obviously, if you could meet the people, you should say, I'm sorry to them, but the fact that you have remorse and you're embarrassed, that itself is enough.
Okay, so with so many books available on Rabbi Nachman, where should one start his journey? Which book should they pick up first?
I mean, there's so many books that have different, if you want to know about his life, you could pick up a book called Wisdom, which is a great book, which is pretty much very short. It's a short read. It talks about his life and his sayings. I would start with Wisdom. Crossing the Narrow Bridge is another one. If you want a book more on Emunah, and what Rabbi Nachman says about Emunah, I would start with the Garden of Emunah and the Garden of Gratitude. So depending on what you're looking for. I mean, there's Rabbi Kramer has done, Rabbi Arush, they've expanded the markets with Breslev teachings. If you want a book on one-liners, there's a book called Aleph Bet. If you want a book on, paragraphs, just not one-liners, but a little bit more, I would pick up a book called Advice. So either Advice, Wisdom, Crossing the Narrow Bridge, Garden of Emunah, Garden of Gratitude, all those are great starting points.
Okay, this is a question from a viewer from Facebook. Both my parents have late stage of dementia. They're still alive, but I feel like I'm mourning them. I find myself sad very often. How can I go forwards in a more joyous way?
Again, we can't stop the grieving process. There's a time to grieve. Right now, it's hard. Again, it's very difficult. When I was my son was sick for 1.5 years in the hospital. It was a major struggle. It was a major struggle to fight for happiness. And luckily, I found proper escapes, such as the classes and such as charity and such as communal prayer. But there's a time to grieve. There's a time to grieve. And you have to allow yourself the time to grieve also. You can't this is not just about feeling good all the time. There's a time to have a broken heart. Shalom HaMelech says there's 28 times. There's a time to cry. There's a time to laugh. There's a time to build. There's a time to that. Everything passes, but there's also time to grieve. And I think this is what you're feeling. It's okay. You don't have to always feel great. You can say, I'm brokenhearted right now. What can I do? There's a time to do everything. You understand? Today I had very challenging news today on a business deal. 10 o'clock, and I left my office. I'm like, right now I can't work with this. I went to go to the spa. I went to go just get my mind off of everything. That's not a time to work right now. When your head is completely, when you get tremendous news like that, and you have to go. You have to go and at least take the edge off. I went to the spa. I did something else just to get me out of that mindset. So there's a time for everything. You don't have to always be one way in life. There's a time to run, there's different times that we need to understand that.
So one of the questions is, with all the pressure coming from the government in regards to the vaccine, and the person doesn't want to get vaccinated, what's the best way to approach that?
Move to Florida. I hear your struggle. I hear it. This is beyond. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. My wife doesn't want me to go to New York now because of all these vaccine mandates. It's a major headache. It's a challenging situation. I mean, thank God in Florida we have a normal person running the show here, but I can't even imagine what's going on over there. It's very difficult. But move to Florida, I will tell you to do that. It's just there's no sechel, there's no logic anymore. Everything's just madness and craziness. It's getting worse and worse. But Florida, we're pretty good. It's not easy to move to Florida. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Listen, I had COVID. I don't know why I would have to go get vaccinated if I have antibodies. I mean, why would I go get vaccinated if I already have the antibodies? I'm not against it, but if you had it already, I mean, what's the point? We want to go on to bigger and better things, God willing.
Okay, there's a lot of questions here.
What do you think you're here for, Uriel?
Yeah. How can one build up their self and their confidence and self-esteem? What's the best way to build your confidence and self-esteem?
Action. Action. When we're taking action, we're showing that we're investing in our future self. Action is the most important thing. Getting going, no matter what. If you fail, you win, you're not. Getting going is the most important thing. Is taking action, investing in oneself, loving oneself, putting time in oneself, delayed gratification, all of these things. Where you start showing self-control, you start showing action, you start showing investment in the future self is a great way. Getting out of your comfort zone is a tremendous way to build your self-esteem. Becoming more knowledgeable, learning more, which means when you learn more, you recognize you'll be less insulted by other people because you won't make everything about you. So these are all areas where we can build our self-esteem. I think we have a class, 13 ways to build self-esteem. But action is one of the most important things you could do.
Okay. The next question is, when going to a Sadiq's kever, who are you praying to? Should we only pray to Hashem?
Absolutely. You only pray to Hashem, but you're also praying in the merits of this holy place that you're at. Just like in the wall, when we go to the wall of the Western Wall, you're praying to Hashem, but you're praying in the merit of this of the Beit HaMikdash, in the wall, this holy place. So of course you pray only to Hashem, but in the merit of the tzaddik that's buried there, you pray to Hashem.
So the next question is, what are your views and stance in regards to affirmation? Do you personally say them and use them to, put what you want?
I don't. I'm not saying I don't. I use deadlines. I like deadlines more. I hit deadlines. Affirmations, I don't do that much because my action does more than my words. I like to do more than talk. Nachman always said that. Do more than talk. I have trust. Okay, you have trust. Go open up a business. There's nothing greater than action versus just sometimes we just too much of affirmations. The problem is affirmations when you don't believe them, it'll be a problem. But again, it could work for some other people, but it's never worked. Those never work for me. Taking action, hitting deadlines, showing that I can get through difficult situations, that really helped me more than talking about it. But to other people, it could help. But there's nothing like action. Nothing like it. Because you're conquering your fear when you're taking action. You're breaking everything, creating a new identity versus trying to fix a behavior.
So you just mentioned belief. So how important are beliefs in anything that you do in life? How important is, putting belief in an equation or an approach that anyone needs to take?
It's the first thing you have to work on. Because all actions are belief driven. Everything you do is based on what you believe. Whether you go to the gym is what you view exercise. You view exercise as a gift, you view exercise as a chore. Your marriage, you believe your marriage is an opportunity for you to get blessings from your creator, then you're going to put a lot of energy. Wherever you put your belief is where you put energy. If you believe, anytime you put a high effort in something, it's because you believe in that situation. Anytime you put a low effort in something, it's because you don't believe in that situation, pretty much. Beliefs are the core to getting things done. You change your beliefs, you change everything. Before I started getting into Rabbi Nachman, I viewed my belief that prayer was exhausting, old. I used to walk into synagogues like, what am I here for? And then after I got into Rabbi Nachman's teachings and he taught me the gift of prayer and an empowering experience and the energy, now I changed my belief about prayer. And I said, wow, prayer is energy. Prayer is not draining. So I changed my whole system of beliefs on prayer, on Torah, I believe Eli Stefansky is a wonderful, he's a Maggid Shur, he does the 8-minute daf. He's changed the whole, daf yomi. People now are excited to learn the daf instead of before the daf became very heavy. So he changed the belief of what learning daf is. And he's done a phenomenal job. So that's a primary example how beliefs change outcomes, beliefs change actions.
Okay, so this is a heavy question. I have an issue with my mother-in-law. I tried to speaking to her and she said Shabbat Shalom and hold on. I tried speaking to her and said Shabbat Shalom and she refused to talk to me. However, I heard her cursing at me. What should I do for Hanukkah? Should I go to her house and pretend that I didn't hear her cursing at me? Basically, she wished her death and just let it go, or should I approach her and talk to her?
Nachman says the way to combat a person with an evil eye is with a good eye. That's one approach. One approach could be shower her with love. Shower her, send her love. Kill her with kindness. I would start with killing with kindness. And if that doesn't work, you can ask another question. But what I've done with difficult people, kill them with kindness. They don't know what to do. They get embarrassed over what they said to you. So I would start with the killing with kindness. It usually works. Maybe she was having a bad day and she cursed you. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I start with killing with kindness. Bigger people don't seek revenge. Bigger people send people mercy. That's the difference. When you get to a higher level of consciousness, you won't take it personal. You'll say maybe she was hurt that day. She's confused. You have to send her mercy and forgive her.
So what's the best book to get for someone who has anger issues?
Never Get Angry Again. That's a good book. Never Get Angry Again. Moroccans for Dummies 101. I'm just kidding. I would say Never Get Angry Again. Start with that one. Because it's usually anger is very connected to control. If you have a problem with control, you have a problem with anger. Anything that David Lieberman is really good. David Lieberman really has a great books on anger.
What about Let It Go? That book.
Let It Go is also phenomenal for anger. Yeah. Absolutely. Let It Go and Never Get Angry Again. Because remember, anger is something we hold inside. It's not something that happens outside. It's an internal thing, but it becomes external when we get triggered or when we lose control.
Okay, so I've been working in finance for the past 2 years after graduating college, but after listening to your classes for some time now, I have a strong desire to help others, which leads me to believe I may be on the wrong career path. What is the best way I can know I'm fulfilling Hashem's will in my career? I want to help others as a therapist, but I don't know if I'm putting myself in financial danger.
Yeah, don't quit your job. Start small. You want to help people, start with a weekend thing. Do a YouTube class or do something small. Don't quit your day job until you are, God forbid, set up. But don't quit. Start small. Start, with a group of people. How did I start the class? It started with 5 people. And it took off itself. It came to me. I never prayed to be a public speaker. I never prayed to do this. I just had good intentions. I really believed in Rabbi Nachman's teachings. The rest was history. I never prayed for this, planned on doing this in a million years. If it's going to happen to you, it's going to happen to you. But do it first out of love and passion. But do not quit your day job.
I need chizuk to come on time to davening. I'm also struggling with getting to minyan on time. It feels very wrong to go walk in late. What could I do?
Rabbi Nachman says your level of emunah is your level of zealousness. So look at it that way. The more zealous you are, but again, it's good to go. It's good to go. It's better to be late than not to go at all. But you should try to just look at it as you're talking to your creator, and you would never show up late to a meeting with a big buyer. So you would never. Again, I'm not always on time myself. But you just have to try it little by little. Just try to have more energy and look at it as an opportunity, not as an obligation. I struggled with that myself, because I was doing my thing in the morning, and I'm like, I'm bothered because I'm coming in halfway. It's a little bit rude to come in halfway to prayer. And then I changed it, and I prayed that I should get there earlier. And thank God I've been able to do that. Because when you start rushing the prayer, it goes nowhere. Also, that's also a problem. You start rushing in. You're just always playing catch up. You don't feel like you did anything.
Okay, this is another question. When healing from the past, you speak about loading things off onto Hashem and letting him know how you feel. But even if after you told him the things, the past keeps hurting you and haunting you and it keeps coming up, do you confront the person that hurt you or leave it and let it just be and keep moving along?
Sometimes you have to express yourself. There's times where you have to express whatever we went through and take, just say when you have something worrying in your heart, express it to others. I would say you need closure in that area in your life. I would say do express it. And then recognize that they only did that to you because they were hurt. People hurt others. Hurt people hurt others. Period. When you're not in a good mood, you snap at people. We're not nice to people. We're not in a good mood. So we do it to other people. So we can pretty much say that when people do it to us, it's because they were hurt themselves. So you have to send them mercy and recognize that they only did it because they were hurt. Confront them, but recognize the major tachlis is I should have been so insulted, because if I would have recognized that it wasn't about me, then you wouldn't feel so upset and hold on so long.
Okay. My friend is sending her daughter to college and says she's very stressed about money. I feel bad that she's stressed. She's a single mom. She did not ask me for money. However, I'm contemplating lending her the money, but it feels scary to lend someone money, even to a friend. What do you recommend?
Whenever I lend money, I usually give it as a gift because I usually don't get it back. Just give her something. If you feel in your heart you want to be compassionate, give her something where you can afford to lose. Because if you give it as a gift, then you don't lose a friendship out of it. Because if they don't pay it back, it's awkward, and they look at you the wrong way. And anytime I've seen ungiven, all of a sudden I've loaned people money, and they're turning their face at me, and I'm the one that helped them. So it's pretty ridiculous. But this is why I'd rather gift it to people. And usually, I don't know, depending on the situation, you don't usually get that money back usually. So I would say give what you can, so it doesn't hurt you. But if it's going to hurt you too much, don't do it.
Okay. The next question is, this person has been going through a lot of pain because they just had a divorce. However, they feel like they could date again. Yet again, their self-esteem is extremely low. So should this person be working on their self-esteem, and they should wait till they heal until they start dating again? And could they just say that the marriage and dating is going to heal it?
No, it will not heal it. Like I always say, when you have low self-esteem, it's like finding a business partner in bankruptcy court. Don't expect because you once you feel better about yourself, and once you start working on your self-esteem by processing and healing, you're going to want a better person. You will not settle for the same person that you would have gone out with just to check a box. Because remember, that's also a problem. When we have low self-esteem, we don't want to be lonely. So we'd rather just get into a relationship, even though it's the wrong one, and we'll justify it. And then all of a sudden, now you have two problems. Now you're back into another toxic relationship. You still have a low self-esteem, and here you're at. Now you got a triple whammy here because you never healed. So don't just jump into a relationship unless you yourself know who you are, you love yourself, and you're able to now get into a relationship without constantly getting insulted or making everything about you. Because when you have low self-esteem, you become very needy. And people that don't like needy people, they need a space. And, imagine having low self-esteem, and that person tells you, "Listen, I need some space." And you're going to say, "Oh, they don't love me." You see, it's happening again. you're going to create a tremendous cycle of more failure, more failure. So definitely need to heal first. Absolutely. Need to heal before you get into a relationship.
Okay, so this next question is a student in a graduate program. How do I know when is the right time to get married, even though I'm still in this graduate program?
How do you know it's the right time to get married? I mean, listen, depending on also who you find, sometimes you can find a very special person that they're willing to grow with you. It's depending on really the situation. If that special person's in your life, and you say that this is something that you can grow together, and she's willing to have patience with you, then that could be a wonderful match. Our sages say get married younger because we could be saved from sin. We could be saved from God forbid other things. And once you get older, we become pickier. So I like younger because you become less picky. And once you get older, you just become more picky and more in your ways, and it becomes much more harder. But somebody that's willing to be simple and grow with you, that's usually the best matches.
Okay, the next question is, I have a son who suffers from severe mental illness. He's gone to using drugs and is in jail now. Can our prayers work to change someone else?
Absolutely. But between you and me, my admissions coordinator who works for me now, he was very similar to that story. He says the jail was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. He became so spiritual in jail. He got out, he spent 3 years in jail, and he came out of there a completely different person. So sometimes jail can actually heal him, believe it or not. So what you have to do is Hashem, keep on doing what's best for him. Not necessarily take him out, because maybe it's very good for him to be there right now. Maybe that's healing him. So you really want to say, do what you think is best for him. I don't know if it's better if you take him out, if you don't take him out, maybe he's getting healed there. Whatever is best for him and his higher purpose, please do. That's more of an effective prayer than you wanting him out. Meanwhile, it could be a disaster if he comes out. It could be more beneficial if he's there.
Okay, great. I was advised to reconcile with my estranged father, but was very abusive and absent most of my childhood. I do not want to I do not want to have him in my life and reconcile with him, but don't want that strained energy to hold me back in life. Any suggestions for not letting that lack of a relationship ruin the rest of my life?
Yeah, I mean, that person has already controlled how many years of your life? 20, 15, 10? Don't you want your power back? Don't you want control back in your life? Anytime somebody controls your life for a certain amount of years, forgiveness is not for them. Forgiveness is for you. Forgiveness is for you. It's not for them. You are the one benefiting, not them. So when you're saying, how could I not forgive them? You want to run after forgiving him because you recognize he did it to you because he was not well. He's not well. If he was well, he wouldn't have treated you like that. So you want to forgive him because you want to move on. Forgiveness will keep you out of prison. Now you're in a mental prison because you're still stuck in the past because of the situation. You want to get out of prison. You want to be liberated by forgiveness. A great book is called The Gift by Edith Eger. Phenomenal book. If you want to just read that book before you do it, it'll give you tremendous pointers on how to deal with the situation.
So there's another question someone asked. A lot of men basically are going out and they're saying that they don't want to have children, that they have nieces and nephews, and they don't look forward to having children. What's the best way to approach these type of guys and explaining to them how important having children is? It's one of the first mitzvot.
I mean, that's a problem. You want to have children because otherwise, you want to give. Children are very, very important. You want to give. Depending on the type of lifestyle that person's living. Sometimes that person sometimes is used to his own lifestyle and doesn't really bother. you know. If you need children, then that's not the guy for you. You don't always want to remember. The problem is when you force somebody to have children, and then now that the children acts the wrong way, he's going to resent you and say, "Look what you did to my life." So you can't win. You can't win that way. You don't want to force people to do something. They should want to do it on their own, because then you're going to be you're going to be the one that they're going to resent because of that situation. We'll take 5 more questions, Uriel. So 9:30.
Sure.
Cool.
So, how should one pray? Basically, believe in what is and what will happen to you, or just start towards believing it and it will happen. So basically the question is, do you take the step or just believe that it's going to happen?
It's a very loaded question.
Yeah.
Read the perfect prayer. There's a class called the perfect prayer. Maybe send that one to him. Spiritually, you usually get what you ask for. Financially and other things, it's usually a condition on merit, it's a little more complicated when it comes to financial and other issues. You have to create a heavenly need for it. That's usually the best way to get something. If you just, I need another house so I can be more comfortable. It's usually in reverse. When you feel abundant and you feel happy, your creator usually gives you things that you would never imagine. So the best way is really not so much to run after, but more to attract.
If someone is struggling with losing one of their loved ones, are they allowed to go to a medium? Does it affect the person's neshama?
I would not go to a medium. It's not going to do anything for you. So what are they going to do for you? What is the medium going to tell you? Everybody comes in this world on a mission. They're given a certain amount of years. The mission's done. Rabbi Nachman died at 38. Okay? He says, I have nothing else to do in this world. Forget the tuberculosis. He really died because there was nothing left for him to do. He did the mission. Arya Kaplan died at 33. The Arizal died at 33. There's certain, we have to come to the point where this world is only temporary. We're too stuck in this world. And I know it's very frightening for that to tell people, but reading Rabbi Nachman's teaching for 20-something years, he doesn't have this permanent Allah Hazeh mindset. He has more like you're here to do a mission, you're a passenger, grab as much as you can, and there'll be a time. And he doesn't look at it as bad. Look at it as bad. He looks at it as moving from one room to another room. Hope that helps.
So what's the best way to define that?
Consciousness, perspective, wisdom. That's that. Your consciousness, your perspective. It's a combination between Chachma and Bina, which is wisdom, which is light, wisdom. Chachma is wisdom. Bina is understanding. And once you have wisdom and understanding, you have Dat. Dat is a result of, I have a 5,000 square foot house. I want to build a 5,000 square foot house. But my wife tells me I can only build a 4,000 square foot house because the lot doesn't match it. And then all of a sudden I say, okay, you're right. So now the dot is to recognize that I can only build 4,000 square foot. That is dot. To be able to take it all, to take the right and the left and make it all into one. The right is always wants a lot of light, vision. The left is more of a decision. It's more constriction. So when you take Chachma and Bina, the right side of your brain, the left side of your brain, that the combination of those two become that.
So when you say that anxiety is a lack of that, what if the person is being told by the therapist that it's a chemical imbalancement in the brain? How does his body do to fix the chemical imbalancement, and how does one acquire more dot when the chemical?
Okay, there is people that have a high tendency to anxiety, and just like people have medically depressed. So obviously, but you would have to you do a lot of meditation. But just the awareness you could do, for example, you can get into heavy breathing. Breathing keeps you in the moment. So the way I could deal with it, for example, anxiety, if I'm anxious, I'm not afraid of the anxiety. It's a feeling. And then what I do is I get into my breath, I calm down, and then I recognize the reason why I'm anxious in the first place is because I'm not aware of what I'm doing. I'm thinking about something else. So we have to exit our mind and enter the moment. So some tools that will teach you with anxiety is how to bring back to the present. So meditation brings you back to the present. Exercise brings you back to the present. Prayer brings you back to the present. Breathing brings you back to the present. So I would start doing some of these little habits, meditating, working out. When I meditate, I'm in the present. When I'm working out, after I work out, I'm focused. Science is telling you after you work out, it's like taking Ritalin. You're completely focused. When I breathe, Wim Hof, I'm present in the moment. So there's a lot of things you could do to basically cut into that anxiety and get more into the moment.
Should I ask?
Try meditating, breathing, and exercising, and see if that completely does not help you out with that.
Do you want to take more questions?
We'll take one more. And then we'll go.
So many people in their 30s and 40s are getting through their workday or dating while struggling with complex traumas which they're trying to manage. How do you handle a situation where it's clear the other person's trauma is informing their decision or actions and it's not pure logic?
Welcome to these classes. We're trying to get people to recognize they are not their trauma. It's a big problem. There's the majority of the world does not know how to deal with trauma. They do not know how to deal with trauma. Everybody's holding on to dead weight and just shoving it to other people, and it's a problem. This is one of the reasons why I do these classes, to get people to we could process this and we could turn post-traumatic stress to post-traumatic growth. But you're right, most people with trauma, they don't even want to listen. Even when you try to help them, they're like, I don't want to listen. I'm good. So you're really sometimes stuck. I would say one thing I would tell you, listen, if you're going to go get married or date, etc., make sure you have somebody that's open-minded and that's willing to learn and work on themselves. Because if they're willing to learn and work on themselves, they have humility. For people that don't want to work on themselves, and just, get stuck in the past, it's not going to be much fun. It's not a fun relationship. So I always recommend people get people that are hungrier to work on themselves, to process them. You can heal through therapy. You can heal through therapy. You can heal through Torah. All of this can heal you. But there's not one of us in this world that does not have trauma. It's part of creation. So we need to know how to deal with it. We need to know how to work with Emunah. Because if we're having a hard time with Emunah, we're going to have a hard time with trauma. All
right. I think we should wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Just keep an eye out on the WhatsApp groups on Facebook and Instagram for upcoming events. If you're not on Instagram, if you're not on WhatsApp, please send me a message. I will gladly send you the phone number or a link. Let me actually give you the phone number right now. If you want to write it down, please have a pen and paper.
I'm just not on it yet. Get on it.
Give me 1 second. I didn't fully memorize it. It's 305-290-1492. Again, 305-290-1492. Send a message and I'll be more than happy to direct you to whatever other questions you have and information about upcoming events. Gedale, thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thank you so much, guys. Guys, have a good night.